Chapter 1. The three astronauts stood on the bridge of their spacecraft, staring out at the planet below. Kara was the first to break the silence. "All right, team. We've been training for this for months. Let's make this count." Evan nodded nervously, clutching his clipboard tightly. James grinned confidently. "You got it, Captain. Let's show this planet what we're made of." The landing was bumpy, but the team managed to set down their craft safely in a clearing near a dense forest. Kara quickly took charge, organizing the team's equipment and setting up a perimeter. "Everyone, stay alert. We don't know what's out there." Evan was already eagerly exploring the flora and fauna around them, scribbling notes into his notebook. "This is incredible," he muttered to himself. "There's so much biodiversity here. This planet could be a goldmine for biotech research." James was tinkering with their rover, trying to optimize its performance. "I'll make some tweaks to this baby and we'll be able to cover twice as much ground." As the sun began to set, the team settled down for the night in their makeshift camp. Kara sat alone outside the tent, staring up at the stars. She couldn't help but think of her late brother, who had inspired her to become an astronaut in the first place. She felt a pang of guilt for not telling her crew about her personal struggles, but she didn't want to burden them. The next morning, the team set out to explore the nearby ruins of an ancient city. As they trekked through the forest, they noticed strange markings on the trees and rocks. Evan examined them closely. "These look like they were made by some kind of intelligent beings," he said, pointing to the intricate symbols. "I've never seen anything like it before." Kara nodded. "Keep an eye out for any signs of life. We don't know what we're dealing with here." As they approached the ruins, they saw that the structures were made of a strange, glowing material. James whistled in amazement. "This is some advanced technology. I bet we could learn a lot from this." But as they entered the ruins, they heard a strange sound coming from deeper within. It was a low, guttural growl that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand up. Kara signaled for them to stay quiet and draw their weapons. They cautiously made their way through the ruins, following the sound. They soon came face to face with a group of humanoid creatures with scaly skin and sharp claws. Kara and James raised their guns, ready to defend themselves. But Evan held up a hand, trying to communicate with the creatures. To their surprise, the creatures responded, speaking in a language they couldn't understand. Evan gestured for them to lower their weapons, hoping to establish some kind of peaceful communication. The creatures seemed to understand, and they beckoned for the team to follow them deeper into the ruins. Kara and James were skeptical, but Evan was determined to learn more about these creatures and their culture. As they followed the creatures, they saw that the ruins were filled with strange artifacts and technology. They couldn't help but wonder what had happened to the civilization that had built this city. Suddenly, they heard a loud noise behind them. They turned to see that their spacecraft had been destroyed, reduced to a pile of smoldering metal. Kara cursed under her breath. "We're stranded here. And we have no idea what we're dealing with." The team exchanged worried glances, realizing the gravity of their situation. They were stranded on an alien planet with no way to contact their base or call for help. And they had just encountered a group of unknown creatures who seemed to have some level of intelligence and communication skills. Chapter 2. Stranded. The team stood in stunned silence, looking at the wreckage of their spacecraft. Kara took a deep breath and turned to the group. "We need to assess the situation and come up with a plan. We can't just sit here and wait for rescue." James nodded in agreement. "We should start by securing our perimeter and finding a safe place to set up camp." Evan looked at the creatures who had led them to the ruins. What about them? They seem to have some level of intelligence. Maybe they can help us. Kara frowned. We don't know anything about them. They could be dangerous. We need to be cautious. James pulled out a device from his pocket. I'll try to get a signal on this. Maybe we can contact our base and let them know what happened. As James worked on the device, Kara and Evan surveyed the area. They found a spot that was hidden from view and had some natural cover. They decided to set up camp there, using whatever supplies they had salvaged from the wreckage. The creatures watched them with curiosity, but didn't approach. Kara noticed that they were keeping a respectful distance, as if they were wary of the humans. As night fell, they built a fire and settled in for the long haul. They took turns standing guard, keeping a lookout for any potential threats. Kara couldn't help but wonder what had happened to the civilization that had built these ruins. Were they destroyed by some kind of natural disaster, or had they been wiped out by some external force? Days turned into weeks, and the team settled into a routine. They explored the ruins, gathering information and studying the technology. They learned that the creatures were called Thezorians, and that they had a complex social structure and culture. Evan had taken it upon himself to learn their language and establish communication. Kara and James were impressed by his progress, but they remained cautious. One day, as they were exploring a new area, they came across a strange device. James examined it carefully, trying to figure out its purpose. Suddenly, the device activated, emitting a bright light that engulfed them. When they came to, they found themselves in a completely different part of the ruins. They were disoriented and confused, but they quickly realized that they were not alone. Standing before them was a group of creatures unlike any they had seen before. They were taller, with sleek, metallic bodies and glowing red eyes. They seemed to radiate an aura of power and authority. Kara drew her weapon, ready to defend herself. But the creatures didn't seem to be hostile. They spoke in a language they didn't understand, gesturing for them to follow. The team had no choice but to comply. As they followed the creatures, they couldn't help but wonder what they had stumbled upon. Was this some kind of secret, advanced technology? Or had they inadvertently stumbled upon a hostile force?